this video. Don't know if I've shared this before, but I think I might have. But Frankie, who my brother, who all these men that had raped my brother, fully grown men, and how he was behaving sexually, how he was not just not wanting to at first, but accepting that that's what gay is, and that's what gay people do, and that's just sex. People, that's what that community does toward one another, and they're raping a little boy. As far as for me, it's very terrifying because my mother doesn't know about it. But I wanted to say something that's even more astonishing about Frankie. Frankie was a black belt in Taekwondo, and I knew the relationship that Frankie had with Mr. Miyagi or whatever. I don't know his name, the headmaster, but he was like a world champion, Taekwondo and Judo champion. But he had in his office his shelves full of trophies everywhere. I mean, this guy probably had I had maybe like 10 trophies. I had like 8 trophies in my room. This guy had something like at least 40 trophies and then ribbons and some certificates of awards that he won in martial arts. And I remember Frankie telling me when I was a kid, he goes, yeah, he was smiling and very excited. He goes, yeah, I mean, he said that some of the students were telling Frankie, he was like, yeah, there are some of the people here telling me that you're a legend here, like because the Asian guy, I don't know if he was Japanese or Korean, he kind of looked Korean to me a little bit, but the Asian guy, who worked there, who owned the karate store, he actually was, I remember his expression whenever my dad met him and my mom met him and saying, is this your son? And my dad was like, what? And I remember how the guy talked to my father and my mother, because they'd have to go and pay every month for him to go into being karate classes, and said that Frankie was his top student. Frankie was like one of his top students, or his top student, because there wasn't very many students that stayed there up until they were a black belt, and Frankie did. Frankie was in Taekwondo, I think, a total of 2 years, I think it was. And I remember how his instructor was. I remember his instructor was one of the pedophiles. I knew this guy was gay. But this guy who was like a substitute teacher showed up, and he knew about the rape that had happened with Frankie and was covering it up. And in fact, it bothered me so much because I caught this guy, and then this is where the training began to keep Frankie quiet, to keep Frankie in his place to what was going on with the situation. So I wanted to say this because this is what's being taken away from Frankie, from Sarah and Ken, from all the rapes. Because Frankie didn't do nothing. It was Sarah Cooper for the president, Barack Obama, and George Bush. It was Ken Cooper for the cowboy. And to be raped by that number of men and how vicious that was and how mutilating that was, there's nothing compared to what those screams were, to how much people were really screaming and cheering for Ken and Sarah Cooper, because they have their kids over at the hip hop station for black niggas at hip hop, 50 Cent and the crew, and making sure they get the good life and make sure they have dignity. But there's so much of this that bothers me sometimes. I don't know if I've said this before, but I remember Frankie telling me that he goes, yeah, there's some of the students there were kind of cheering him up. And he said that they were saying that he was, if you heard the rumors about everything, everyone's saying you're a rumor and everything. And I remember when Frankie broke the board, when he broke boards. And I want to say that I remember him breaking a board in our house, or he brought the broken wood to our home. But I do remember, because I had been in his class when he's receiving his belt, a few times because I was there from whenever he was yellow belt to when he first started, and I would go there, and I used to be with another friend of mine because his mom was in karate class, and I would eat lunch and I would watch everyone else, win their awards or whatever, and how Frankie got his brown belt. When I remember Frankie getting his brown belt and his black and his blue belt, and they actually go 2 to 3 stripes. So once you get a belt, you get 1 stripe, and then you get 2 stripes, and I think after the 2nd stripe, you jump to the other belt. So I don't know if it's 2 or 3 stripes, but the black belt is supposed to go up to like 8 stripes, but 8 or 9 stripes. But I wanted to say this because my mother would probably want to know this. Whoever wants to make out of it is, which is very frightening to me. Nobody knows anything about what this karate instructor was doing, and I caught him. The teacher, the Asian teacher, you know what this guy looked like? This guy that was like the substitute teacher. He was like a part-time occasional teacher. He looked a lot like the guy that I saw over when I went to the ballet that was holding that magnifying, that metal detector during the show. He's roaming through the floor in his underwear, in his Speedos, and he's roaming the floor with a metal magnet. That's what he looked like. That's what that guy, not with the equipment obviously, but physically that's what that guy looked like, but much more skinnier and less masculine, physically, much more skinnier, and he was about 6'2". And but I wanted to say that this Asian teacher, I don't think he was gay. I don't think he was. He might be, but I don't at all, because he looked at my father kind of like, "Is that your son?" He's like, "Oh, okay, well, it's your family." But he was, I don't think he was by talking and looking at him. But I wanted to say this because Frankie was, I remember him saying that he was proud of Frankie because Frankie was his top student. If he wasn't one of his top students, he was his top student. Because I used to watch Frankie and some of the other kids that were in Taekwondo class. Frankie really got into that stuff. Like, he got really into the Japanese stuff. Because Frankie really liked a lot of, growing up when I was a kid, a lot of the Japanese cultures, and he liked when I used to watch cartoons, Japanese cartoons or stuff of the Asian culture. He was so tuned into that kind of stuff when I was younger. It was just eyeballing to him. But yeah, I thought I'd make a video on this because nobody knows about those stories. So, I think something happened to Frankie, but remember, this is about Kenneth and how he became the man, and Michelle, and and Madison, and the glories of Dana White, and for the supremacy, because it's over. They got it.